Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from Unconscious-Leak-85. My ex-best friend raped me 10 years ago, and I exposed him during his engagement. AITA? Growing up, I, F27, had a childhood friend, Angie, F27, who was as close as a real sister. We spent entire weekends at each other's place, celebrated family events, etc. From 6 years old till 18 years old. I even lived at her place in 2nd grade while my parents went through a nasty divorce. I learned to speak some Russian, as she is Russian and she learned to speak some Spanish. Needless to say, her older brother and little sister were like a family to me. During our teenage years, she had her 2 male best friends, one whom she started dating, and another one, Nico, now 29, who was Russian as well, whom I started dating at 17. Growing up, I had issues with a heart condition. I won't bore you with the details, but I had to take a lot of meds, but got healthier starting from 16. One didn't have to take them daily, but only when my heart rate became irregular. But then immediately, as it would become extremely painful, my heart would cramp, I would start to hyperventilate. All my friends knew this, Nico included, and that I would black out if my meds got taken with alcohol. I didn't smoke much or drink much growing up as a result, since I was worried about my health, and only did drink at home or in a safe setting. Legal drinking age is 16 here, and I only drank wine or beer if at all. I had my first time with Nico at 17, and when my parents stayed at a retreat 2 weeks later, he came over to have a date night. I did drink 1 glass of wine, but starting having health issues later, resulting in me taking my meds and being unconscious. I was a bit sore the next morning, but didn't think much about it. 2 weeks later, I'm informing Nico that I'm late on my period, and he starts to panic, confessing he had with me while I was unconscious. We had it before, so he didn't think much about it. Apparently, he didn't have a condom, but since I was on the pill, he figured it was all right. And he also didn't come in me, but in a tissue. I felt violated and disgusted by myself. I didn't know how to describe this and only told Angie about it. I was an utter mess for a few years and wasn't able to have sex again until 2 years later. I didn't remember any of it, but was too ashamed to go to my mom or anybody else. I didn't think of it as back then. I was too young to really understand what and how I was violated. And Angie told me it's all right, I should break up if I feel bad about it. But we were in a relationship and did have sex before. I broke up with him the following day, and apparently he cried about his broken heart to her. As Nico and Angie were close and hanging out together a lot, they started dating a few months afterwards, and I had to see him every time when visiting her. I told her I'm not able to see him, but she didn't understand where I'm coming from. The contact stopped, and we haven't texted or seen each other in years. I still followed her and her family and saw that her brother is expecting his first child. As I was extremely close with her family, I just commented on the Insta post, expressing my gratitude when he reached out to me. I missed his wedding, but he wanted to ask if I would be interested in joining the baby shower as it's been years and we've been extremely close before. He told me I was like a third little sister. I just asked if Nico will be attending as well, as Angie and him have been dating for 9 years now, and he said yes. I didn't elaborate much, but just expressed that I'll send a small present. He can give me his current address but won't be attending. He kept on pestering me what exactly happened all those years ago and why I'm not in their lives anymore. Angie told her family I'm not able to see her with an ex of mine, but her brother thought there's more behind it. This is when I think I could be the I told him the truth about what happened back then, and while I didn't know it at 17, I know now that this was and I named it as such. I didn't receive any message back from him, but a few days later, Angie reached out to me, furious. Nico had planned to propose during the baby shower, but Angie's brother is against it now, having learnt why I stopped the contact. She loves Nico and will stay with him, but by doing so, her brother said she is no longer a part of his life, as he doesn't want his little baby girl in the same family as a. Since then, I've been getting messages from old school acquaintances telling me I should have ignored it and not told anybody. Since I didn't speak up back then, I lost the right to do so now, and am a horrible person for ruining somebody's life over some stuff he did 10 years ago when he himself was a child as well. Am I truly the for speaking up? Update. First of all, I am immensely thankful for all the people who took the time to not only read through my story, but also comment. I read every single comment and tried to respond to as many as possible. It gave me a little bit of hope of compassion for victims of and also the courage to not cave to the backlash I received. Mental update. Reading all the messages defending my choices on speaking up made me realize how insecure I was on what I am allowed to do and how much I was trying to make it right to other people besides myself. This especially included Nico and Angie. All of you are right. If Nico had changed, he would have apologized, reached out, or tried to make amends in some way, either when word got to him from his brother-in-law or at some earlier point in his life. My former best friend Angie should have been able to feel some sort of compassion if she had any respect for me as a human being, or the time we spent together. Her reactions showed that I shouldn't hesitate on my actions. I went to therapy from 21 onwards and thought I moved on from the as best as I could, but I realized how ashamed I still am, almost 10 years later, about an incident that wasn't my fault at all. I was ashamed to speak up back then, and afraid that people around me would look differently at me. And somehow, I still felt bad about speaking up today, so I trying to own what happened to me now and not apologize for other people's behaviors, especially as they don't even show me respect. What happened since then? I archived every nasty message I got on WhatsApp so I wouldn't have to read them, but would have the proof if needed at a later point. Angie's mom called me the following day of the incident, crying. I shouldn't have answered the phone, but during the 10 years of friendship, I saw her as an aunt, almost a second mom. She always joked that while her children would run around the house doing whatever, I would always take the time to drink a tea and talk with her, showing her more love and time than her actual children. While she said she's sorry for what has been and for what I went through as a child, she couldn't believe that I would ruin Angie's happiness over something like that. With Angie's brother refusing to have Nico as part of the family, and Angie standing by Nico's side, it's divided their family, and she is heartbroken. She has grown to love Nico like family as well, and has known him for nothing more than a considerate young man who she knows will make her daughter happy. It wasn't nasty names or angry talk, just a heartbroken mother who faked to acknowledge my pain and saw the fault in me. Angie's mom tried to get me to apologize or to take it back, but I refused as I don't see the fault in me. With everything that has happened, I believe that Nico hasn't changed and is just hiding it better somehow. He can see how people are standing by him and supporting his behavior so he won't have to change. And that is something I didn't want to indulge. Angie's mom, not even one used the word, and I tried to correct her every time she talked about it, trying to name it for her to understand better, but she would just start sobbing more, and it didn't make sense for us to continue to talk. Angie's mom used to be in contact with mine for some time, and she reached out to her after our talk. I was afraid that my mom would find out, since she's from a more conservative background. We had a long talk, and I didn't get to see her, physically yet. But she apologized for not being there for me or not making me feel like I can talk to her. I tried to calm her as best as I could, but when she asked me if my current partner knows I was used like that, I got angry. She was scared my partner would leave me if he found out, implying it was something that made me less precious or appealing. When she asked me to keep it a secret from our family abroad and in our country, I hung up. She was acting exactly the way I was afraid she would, as if it's something shameful. It was especially hard as I am trying my best to move away from the feeling of shame. She has since apologized, but it's clear that her view of me has changed. I don't yet know how to deal with it, but that's something to worry about in the next few weeks. As some of you suggested, I wrote Angie's brother, Sven, again, and apologized for the mess. But I'm glad that it is out in the open and how proud I am that he's defending his family. I asked if his old email is still working, as I would just send a gift card. He didn't respond, but I got a message from his wife 2 days ago. She thanked me for speaking up and informing them about Nico. There were apparently had a few moments that made her uncomfortable, some jokes Nico made, and in retrospective, she can see why. Sven apparently informed her the moment he got my initial text, and both of them have since seen Angie but not Nico. She refuses to be in the same room or house as him, and same goes to their unborn daughter. Sven and Angie's mom has been at their place multiple times to beg to forgive Nico, and Sven caved a little. Angie and Nico will get married. Sven will attend, but his wife will not. He is allowed in the family, but not in contact with either Sven's wife or daughter. Those restrictions are not for Angie. Sven was suffering trying to ease his mother's worries and is not able to take a stand and cut them out completely. This is a compromise they made without his wife's approval, and she told me she's trying her best to cut them out of their life indefinitely. She wanted to move back, closer to her family as well, and thinks this is a perfect opportunity, but isn't sure if she can follow through. His wife told me she's terribly sorry for all the issues that came my way, and it has been a lot trying to handle the situation on their side. Sven knows it's not my fault, but he doesn't want contact. It's hard for him to talk or see my name, because even though he knows I'm not the guilty party, in some way I was the bearer or bad news, and he sees me as the start of all this drama. She told me a few times that neither believe I'm the bad guy, they just are tired with everything, and it's just been extremely hard on them. That's all that has happened so far. I am frustrated about how everything came to be. It feels like Nico will just continue with his life without having to be remorseful. I didn't want him to suffer, but I think some part of me wanted to at least receive some kind of apology for all the suffering I went through afterwards. I'm having to deal with my mother and her changed, shameful view on me, and even though I'm happy it's all out, it's extremely hard to stand by my choices. My partner and my best friends both have been my shoulder to cry on during this ordeal. Especially my best friend was enraged for me, and I am extremely grateful to have both by my side. Right now, I'm just emotionally drained, but I'm sure it will be better once a few weeks passes. Update 2. My first post was 3 months ago, and this one will be my last update for now. It is not a good one, but I sincerely wish to leave it all behind me. That includes distancing myself from this Reddit account. These posts helped me let go of my anger, similar to a journal, and I am grateful for all the people who are enraged with me. I hope to open it again someday, with a final happy update. But for now, every little pop-up is a reminder of the anxiety I am still dealing with, and I do not have the energy to deal with this topic outside of my therapy anymore. Short summary for those who don't want to read the old post. Nico raped me when I was his girlfriend 10 years ago. I didn't see it as back then as I was unconscious. Afterwards, I broke up with him. Shortly after, my best friend Angie from elementary school started dating him, and they have been together for almost 10 years. I couldn't bear seeing him and cut the contact with her and her family, with whom I was really close. Her brother Sven reached out to me 3 months ago after I left a short congratulation on a pregnancy picture with his wife. He invited me to their baby shower, and I declined. After a lot of back and forth about him asking me and being suspicious as to why the contact broke off in the first place and why I refused to be in the same space as his sister's boyfriend, I confessed what happened back when I was 17. Afterwards, his family had a huge fight, with him wanting to cut Nico out of their lives for being a and his mum and sister standing by Nico. I was the scapegoat and received a log of hurtful messages from both their friends and former classmates. They called me out on ruining a man's life based on a childish mistake. Nico was 19 back then, and even Angie's mom reached out to mine. I was left to pick up my life, my mom being more ashamed than understanding, and started therapy again. I removed almost everybody tied to that incident. Sven, Angie, Nico, their family, old classmates, and only kept contact with old classmates who sent me messages of support. Update 3. I work in a very specialized field. To get the proper qualification, it takes on average 6 to 8 years, bachelor, master, and then state bar to be allowed to practice. While it is not very competitive, not a lot of people choose this profession, and it is highly sought after. My current company paid for my master's and my extensive course as preparation for the bar exam, and I have been doing well there. My HR department called on me 2 months ago. Apparently, they have been getting a lot of outside calls from Angie's mother and other relatives, saying I am involved in a MeToo scandal and being a liability for the company, as I don't have issues ruining the lives of men. How they could imagine this could change anything I do not understand. I work for a global company. They have known me for years. I never had any issues prior, and quite frankly, they do not care. However, they have been getting frustrated with the number of calls, and apparently even reached out to the police, and the calls have stopped since. Nonetheless, they reached out to me to check on my mental well-being, offering to give me paid leave till it settles a little bit, and offering company-paid therapy. Therapy is covered by my country's health insurance, but it is tricky to get one without waiting time. But I already had my old one on retainer and started going right after the incident. They made it clear that they invested a good amount of money in me and do not wish to lose me. I was ashamed that this part of my private life slipped into my professional one. It started to influence the career I worked hard for years to build, and while my company ensured me that it would not affect the workload and clients I'm getting, word got around, and it was clear for my colleagues that I am going through something nasty, and the company does not want to deal with it. All this stress and anxiety led me to hyper-focus on my work. I took on whatever I could, paranoid that another call would come, and for whatever reason, the company would move me to dead-end department where my career would basically be over. At the same time, I started looking into different companies who would be able to buy me out, as I am tied to my current company for 5 years after graduation. 3 more are left, and I got a management position in a rival company with a huge salary jump. I couldn't be happy about it. I was just relieved I wouldn't get the pity looks from my colleagues anymore. I went to the police with all the hateful messages and the HR protocol with the call history and got a restraining order for Angie's mom. Should she contact my new company again? I have a public LinkedIn. It is needed for my job. At least I have some sort of proof that her words hold no meaning. I got asked if I want to pursue the but decided against it. It would open the whole ordeal again. I don't have proof, besides Nico and Angie not denying it, and quite honestly was afraid of what it would to my career. I did keep contact with a good friend of mine who grew up in the same small town but moved away 5 or so years ago. As we share a Nintendo Switch Online family account, so we tend to be in contact at least once a year for a short phone call, when she has to send me the money for the subscription, and we just tend to make a phone call with updates out of it. Yesterday was one of those days, and the whole Nico thing came up. While she didn't hear it directly, her mom is still living in the small town and reached out to her, asking if I'm all right. She expressed her disapproval about how everything came to be, as she was close with Angie back in the days as well, and remembered how close we were, and how often we spend time together, like sisters. She updated me that 2 months again, Seven's baby girl was born. And while neither Nico or Angie were seen in any of the pictures or stories with the baby, a month ago, Angie and Nico had an engagement party. Both Sven, the baby, and his wife participated and are in the family pictures. I remember how enraged Sven's wife was, and how she told me she herself felt uncomfortable with Sven. Now it is all forgotten and forgiven. Nico's parents own a few houses and gifted Angie and Nico a house close to their home, and Seven and his wife apparently bought a house in the same street. It is as if nothing happened at all. Listening to my friend telling me the updates, I'm honestly not sure if I should have asked her to not tell me anything. I just feel empty and betrayed. Not by Angie, she made her choice. Not by Sven, it is his sister. And at the end of the day, when he asked me what happened, and then didn't have the decency to answer me because he saw me as the one who ruined his family, it was clear that the truth didn't matter. Not by Sven's wife, who has a baby girl, and innocent daughter who she should protect as a mother. Even though she told me she would do her best to keep her daughter away from Nico, but just by life. I fought to have it all behind me, just to have this old wound ripped open again 3 months ago when Sven kept plastering me. I got hate messages, but knowing that maybe someone would be hesitant towards Nico when he showed strange behavior made me feel like maybe I did right. Maybe by speaking up, I helped a girl out to not be. My own mother was ashamed of what happened to me, told me I was to keep it quiet so my family abroad wouldn't get to hear it, just for it all to be all good again for Nico. After everything that happened these last 3 months, I truly understand why victims of chose not to speak up. OP is not an AH for speaking up for herself. Rather, I will say she is a very brave lady who took stand for herself and exposed a Nico, and other who call Nico's heinous crime just a mistake are AHs, bigger AHs. Such behavior needed to be penalized, and the people who support heinous criminals like must be punished. As for scores, I would rate Nico and Co 5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Apprehensive Tip 5133. AITA for wanting to break up with my BF while he's in bed recovering. I am 25F, and my boyfriend is 23M. We have been in an almost 3-year relationship now. We have had our ups and downs like every relationship. But now, after he had a vehicle accident, I am doubting if I should be with him or not. My BF, when he was 18, his stepdad kicked him out of the house and his mother didn't do anything to protect him. He let him live in the streets for 1 month until one of his friends let him stay with them. He suffered after that. The day I knew him, he was in a very dark place. I disliked his mother for the same reason, but not as much as right now. Last year, around September-October, my BF decided to stay at his mom's house because his grandparents had visited and he really thought things were cool with his stepdad already. But my BF was sleeping on the couch when stepdad comes in and tells him to go sleep somewhere else and not on his couch. It caused a whole altercation where the grandpa had to step in. I guess the whole stress grandpa went through caused him to have a heart attack that night. He is well now, but my BF's mom, she's still with that MF. Okay, so fast forward to my birthday, the day of my BF's accident. I received the call he had an accident. I went to the hospital, and I was the first one there. When I saw him, I broke down immediately. His mom called me to see how he was. And well, she got really stressed and started crying more when she heard me cry. Minutes later, she arrived, etc. 3 hours later, they submitted him to surgery, and I overheard her talking with someone OTP, and she said, "I really thought my son was bad, but his GF exaggerated. That pissed me off. He fractured his right side of the body and had to have his femur replaced with a metal rod. Scapula fracture, 3 rib fractures, ankle fracture, clavicle fracture, etc. He also lost a lot of blood. So, my BF stayed 2 weeks in the hospital. Who stayed with him? Me, day and night because his mother couldn't because he had to take his sister to school, which I have sibling also to take to school. My parents don't live here due to their immigration status. His mom started picking fights with him while he was lying in bed, told him to respect his stepdad, and if she wants to, she can bring the stepdad in to see him, and she was telling the nurses how to do their job. So due to my BF's fractures, he had to be moved to the first floor in his apartment complex. I was the one who did all the paperwork to move him and me by myself, moved everything from one building to another. Since they didn't have anything available in that same building, gladly I moved everything. Disinfected also, so everything would be nice and clean. I even bought him furniture. Well, mind you, the day he got released. A few hours before his mother had the keys to the department, and I needed them ASAP because I had other errands to run. He called her to tell her to bring the keys because I needed them. And what did she say? Oh, it's for her? She can wait. That was my damn last strike. I just left my BF at the hospital and went to the gym to work out and let all my stress out. Okay, so that day he got released, and next day I went and visited him. To my surprise, y'all, the department was dirty already, and the furniture I had barely bought. Oh well, his little sister had chocolate wrappers all over it, and even stained it with chocolate, hospital papers all over, etc. Not even 24 hours had passed by. His mother is the one staying with him. BF's mom also got mad at me because I wasn't going to spend Thanksgiving with him, but I had already planned 1 month before to go to Mexico to visit my parents that holiday. So I ended up going to Mexico, and on Saturday decided to go get some drinks with some friends. Well, around 12:30 a.m., my BF made a whole scene demanding me to go home, calling my friend and brother to also tell me to go home. And my BF started offending me, which me already having all this stress and anger, well, I offended him back. Next morning he started acting like the victim. You offended me, all whining and crying about when he started it. So I straight up told him, your mother that abandoned you can offend while lying in bed at the hospital, and you don't talk to her like you talk to me, but I just went to have a couple of drinks and you offend me like a hoe? I never go out to respect my relationship, but he can go out and have drinks with his friends and cousins? Not fair at all. He started defending his mother, and well, what can I do about it now? I just don't know what to do anymore. I love him, but I did everything I could in my hands in his lowest moments. His mother keeps throwing shade to me on Facebook because of me going out to have a couple drinks, and now she's acting like the victim and telling everyone she has been with her son since day one. And that is a lie. Any opinion y'all have matters to me in this moment. Thank you for taking your time to read. I will post an update soon. OP is not an AH. Rather, her boyfriend and his mom are AHs for their dismissive and toxic behavior. OP's boyfriend should be grateful for all the efforts OP did when he was hospitalized, but his response is really pathetic and unacceptable. As for scores, I would rate OP's boyfriend 3.5, OP's BF's mom 2.5, and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from the names DW, AITA, for telling my sister I can't be around her after she announced she was pregnant. For context, my sister currently lives with my husband and I in our attic. She has for over a year now. We moved in over a year ago in a home that we rent specifically so she could live with us. She moved in with a guy she just met, and he kicked her out after 3 months, and since she has lived with everyone else in our life before, I felt obligated to take her in. Also, my husband and I have been trying for 11 years to get pregnant, had failed infertility treatments, and had 3 failed embryo transfers. We have been struggling with it. We started the adoption process 3 years ago, but due to taking her in, we cannot adopt with her living with us. My sister got engaged recently, and we had been excited to plan a wedding and her future. A couple of weeks ago, she announced to me and my husband that she is pregnant. Initially, I am happy for her cause. She thought she could never get pregnant due to similar fertility issues I have. But the next day, it hit me like a ton of bricks. My sister got pregnant before she's married and lives in my house. They don't live together right now. As someone who deals with infertility, it is tough to come to terms with people close to me getting pregnant. I am super happy for them, but it can remind me that I still don't have my little family. Since this is super close to home, literally in my home, I needed time to process. I seek guidance from my therapist, friends, and mom. They all say it may not be healthy for her to continue living in your house while you process. I know that I can have a hard time holding back my thoughts and feelings, so I agree. It's something I'm working on. This brings me to the conversation between her and I, where I tell her I am struggling with her news and not sure how I can go forward watching her be pregnant and hearing about all the baby things. Not kicking her out, but just being upfront with how to go forward. She gets immediately angry, saying I think she doesn't deserve the baby, that it's insane that I don't think I can even be around her. Needless to say, this conversation did not go as I thought it would. I tried to tell her, I just am hurting and I needed time. He doesn't hear this, just that my pain is greater than her happiness, which was not what I was trying to say. We leave the conversation angry. Days pass and we have a brief texting conversation where I tell her I love her and want her to enjoy the pregnancy, that I do think she deserves this, but it's just hard for me. She and I reconcile, but of course, I'm taking it day to day. I do my best to just avoid conversations around the pregnancy, and we even go to the movies together. We seem to get into a new rhythm of things. It's not ideal, but at least we can go on with life. Well, it is short-lived. 2 weeks after that initial argument, things go south. My husband and I have a child in our church that we have been contemplating bringing into our home to help their grandparents who have custody of them. Because of that, I felt it best that we find out my sister and her fiancé's timeline of moving out. Now, quick note, there are a lot of things on their plate that needs to be taken care of before that can happen for them. I am aware of this and try to be delicate about it, not giving them a move-out date, but just seeing where they are and having them understand that we have a situation that might need them to move out quicker than expected. My husband and I even try to help them find a new place by sending them apartment finds. That was the wrong thing to do. I immediately find out that I don't care and think they are incompetent. I'm accused of being a horrible person that is rude, narcissistic, and manipulative. I have done nothing but make her life unbearable by my snide remarks. I've done nothing but made them unhappy they are pregnant. I could go on, but I believe I wouldn't relate everything appropriately. AITA for wanting my sister out of the house so our relationship doesn't get worse and for having a bad response to her being pregnant. From our conversations, I feel like I've become this horrible person without realizing it. OP is not an AH for demanding some space from her sister. OP's sister is an AH for accusing her of being manipulative and kept on criticizing her. She should understand OP's behavior. OP is just honest and fair in her dealings with her sister. She did nothing wrong. So, I would rate OP 0. As for OP's sister, I would rate her 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale.